All right, welcome to the SNG Weekly Wrap-Up. I'm James Cringe, joined as always by Joe Lazito there on the bottom left. And we've got, for the first time ever, our new co-host, Dan Brown. Dan, you're part of the SNG network elsewhere, but this is your first time with us on SNG Weekly Wrap-Up. You'll be with us every week from here on out. How you doing today?
I'm very well. I'm all good. I'm obviously in a different time zone, a way different time zone to you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to be here, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no,
it's good to have another Yankee fan for once.
Yeah, this shirt actually was a present from I think James's sister. Is that right?
Yeah, Janine got it for you. So
yeah,
shout out Janine.
So, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're living in London, and yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your sports knowledge and your American sports knowledge as well.
Yeah, so I live in London. I guess my main sport that I follow is soccer. I have a podcast of my own, which is called Back to Football, but obviously that for Americans, that would be Back to Soccer. The team I support here in London is Fulham. But I do have quite a considerable soft spot for Manchester United. So I think they're probably much more of a familiar team to US-based audiences. I also like Formula One, golf. I kind of play more golf than I watch, and I don't play that much golf, but I do like golf. So that, we can cover that a little bit. In terms of American sports, obviously, NFL is huge in London these days with the London series, and MLB has been coming over here, or they came over here for the first time this year, or 2019, wasn't it?
2019, I think.
And the Cubs were due to play, I think, the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in London this summer, but obviously that got cancelled. I guess my most followed North American sport is hockey. And yeah, big fan of that. Probably a Dallas Stars fan, kind of from way before, but also from visiting you, James, in Texas. We've been to a few Stars games, and yeah, I do like that organization, like the players there. The recent history there is pretty good. And then, yeah, following basketball a little bit more these days. I think over in Europe, there's been a big take up in basketball kind of fandom, whatever you would say, following on from The Last Dance. Obviously, The Last Dance went out on Netflix in Europe. I think it was ESPN in the States. Is that right?
Yep.
So obviously having it on Netflix does great things for it over here, because it's just, pretty much more, I would say, like 75% of young people or more than that maybe have access to Netflix. So yeah, basketball, I think when that kind of fully resumes, I'll have a slightly more vested interest in that. But yeah, so across the board, pretty into sports. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you on a sports show then, if you're that into sports. We have 5 topics today. We're going to run down 3 of them, 2 of them American, 2 of them European, and then 1 kind of a mix of both. But before we do that, you did bring up The Last Dance. I just want to ask you real quick, do you agree with Joe's take that Michael Jordan is not even a top 100 player in the history of the NBA?
That is not correct, but you can respond to that anyway.
Absolutely not. I mean, yeah, he's got to be top 2, is he not? At least
I do want to say that tonight is the Decision documentary, LeBron James, where I believe sports kind of pivoted on that day in July of 2010, I think.
Yes, I was actually in Ireland during the Decision.
Really?
So I missed the whole video, but I got obviously the announcement. But I have no interest. I won't be watching that. I'm sorry.
I won't be watching either, but you're already seeing the pivoting of blame now.
Yes, to the fans,
pivoted
right?
Society, and it also now they're taking it away from LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
They're blaming it on somebody that wrote into Bill Simmons' page 2 mailbag.
Yes.
And they said that was the reason that it went on with it. So listen, I am a LeBron fan, but the more these kinds of things happen, it's hard to defend LeBron. So I'll just continue my Klay Thompson is the greatest player of all time.
No, that's good. I like that. Not even picking the best player on his team. Let's jump into our first topic. It's the MLB. Dan, I don't know what your knowledge is over here of the MLB and what's going to kind of take place in 2020. But I'll give you a quick breakdown of what to expect this season. First and foremost, you have Max Scherzer there is going to be pitching opening day against Garrett Cole, most likely. Excuse me. So that should be good. Good matchup. Exciting for both Nationals and Yankees fans, such as yourselves. So with this season breakdown, you've got a 60-game schedule. Teams are going to play 10 games against their divisional opponents, 4 against each of their interleague divisional opponents or regional or however you want to say it. They'll have the regular playoff schedule. You've got the August 31st trade deadline. You've got the universal designated hitter going to the NL as well as the AL. A runner on second base for extra innings. Your roster sizes are going to start at 30. After 2 weeks, they'll go to 28. After another 2 weeks, they'll go to 26. And there's going to be a special COVID injured list where players can be on for either as little or as long as the teams deem necessary. So, Joe, I'll go to you first. We talked about it a bit on Spurtability this week, but what are your thoughts on the 60-game season and kind of what are your expectations?
Yeah, like I said earlier this week, I have no complaints about the schedule length. I have no complaints about the new rules and what could be considered legitimate. I am just excited to watch baseball. And I also want to reiterate, we are operating under the guise of, yes, there is going to be a season. Just because there's one schedule doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. It does seem more real now just because you're looking at the schedule and you can actually, look at the NBA as well has released their schedule, and it seems a little more real now than I think it ever has been, obviously. But no, of course, totally excited to get back into it. And I guess my question for Dan is, because I have been watching the EPL and even Bundesliga, would you, because of the curiosity, are you now more inclined to watch the MLB more regularly?
Yes, certainly. It's just to be honest, the time zone is just so against that league, and I think all American sports is probably the biggest problem with European audiences is the time zone. If MLB was available to watch at 6 p.m. in the evening, and you could get it, on TV in some way every day, I think more people would probably watch it now because it's kind of returning. But I would love to be watching these games, but unfortunately they're going to be like still probably midnight starts. Or
I think
past, whatever.
Now you might get some luck in with the NBA and the NHL as they're doing kind of the full day schedule. So at least in the first and second round of the playoffs, you'll have games that are taking place around 7, 9 o'clock your time, PM your time, GMT, as I properly guessed this week. So that might work well. Baseball, probably not going to have a ton of day games, as there's typically not, and they're going to want to get the best ratings possible since it's just 60 games. The thing I'm excited about is that it's just going to be a sprint. Like, I think for the casual baseball fan, the 162 games, it can be really hard to focus on a full season, especially once you hit July, August. You're kind of in those dead days of baseball, and sometimes divisions are already wrapped up and all that, but there could be a team that gets off to a 30-10 start this year. Let's say a 20-10, 20-5 start, and then loses, 15 of their next 20 games, and they've gone from clear-cut division winners all the way down to, third, fourth place in their division. So that's going to be kind of interesting to watch. Something that I'm excited about there. And then, I don't know. I think new rules are just always good and fun. Joe and I talked about we wouldn't want these rules to stay forever, but for one season and one weird season that hopefully takes place, I'm into it. So that leads into the next question here. Do we think that there will be fans at these games? So to kind of give a preface here, some states like Texas, where I'm living, they're still saying that they're going to have fans to 50% capacity, despite the fact that our cases keep rising up every single day. And so my two questions, and I'll start with you, Dan. Do you think there should be fans? I know European sports are doing it without fans. And if there's no fans, should they do what the Korean Baseball League is doing with stuffed animals in the seats?
Yeah, I think there absolutely should not be fans. Like you say, the cases are shooting back up in some places, and when you can watch this from home and have just I know you don't get that in stadium experience and the sounds and the smells and whatever, but just don't let fans in. Like, what's the point? Like, it's needless risk when TV coverage can be so good. I mean, I know we'll probably get onto it a little bit later in the show, but it does raise that question about how do you maybe put crowd noise in and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it become unenjoyable to watch a silent game from home? But I don't know. From watching the Premier League so far, I've quite liked actually being able to hear some of the on-field communication, which is something that certainly in European sports we don't really ever get, like the mic'd up kind of segments and stuff like that. So just to be able to hear players on the field kind of giving commands to each other is cool. That's a good new take. So yeah, I wouldn't put fans in there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The Sugarland Skeeters, which is a real team, independent league, they are for some reason having fans. I mean, it couldn't be less relevant baseball, and they're going to have fans starting this week. So that's
where Tracy McGrady played.
That is where Tracy McGrady played. That's right. So that'll be kind of interesting to see if 7,000 people that show up to the game go home all with COVID. And they have to shut down the fans for good. Joe, do you think, I know you like UFC without fans. I know you like that added element. Do you think that a game that is kind of slower paced like baseball, do you think that is hurt more without fans?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think you can pipe in crowd noise like in soccer, because there's not really a consistently whoever does the sound for soccer is very good at the rising action and kind of using whatever they have to make it seem like there really is a crowd there. And I think baseball will be tougher. The only thing they have kind of working for them is it is outside, obviously, and the NBA, NHL, you'd have to think there's a 0% chance. I think it's a less than 5% for the MLB, but just because it is outside, I'm sure there's ways that governing boards can get around it. But do I think there needs to be anything piped in? Not really. I don't think you get too much of a home field advantage in baseball as it is with the crowd noise. So no, I don't think it would take away from the game for me, but I'm sure for the casual fan, yes, it would be very awkward. And just weird.
So what's kind of interesting here though, Joe, is that you mentioned the casual fan. I think you would be kind of the casual fan if you even called that of the EPL or Bundesliga,
yeah,
having
sure.
the fake crowd noise, and you like it. Whereas Dan, I know you don't like the fake crowd noise as much. You feel like they're not doing as good of a job, right?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting to hear your thoughts though on this, Joe. But the thing I like it for, like, let's say like 90% of the game, being kind of a percentages guy today, but 90% of the game, it's fine, and it sounds authentic, and it's quite good because they've obviously gone back and taken recordings of crowds from old games, and so you're hearing like the actual chants of that club. But where it really doesn't work is where there's then a breakaway or a one-on-one or something with the goalie, or a really good shot out of nowhere, and you don't get that crowd reaction. You don't get that rise in pitch, or everyone shouting "come on" or "get in" or whatever. So it feels really unauthentic at that point. So it goes from one end of the scale to the other just in like a couple of seconds. And I know I think it would be kind of difficult. I don't know whether it's something that they could maybe work with like the video game industry in kind of programming in some sort of if they had some sort of like AI software that could follow the game and actually kind of react. And maybe if they put some sort of delay on the game as well, like by a few seconds, just so they could try and make it more authentic. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it's kind of I've probably seen 50% of the games I've watched with the crowd noise, and then the other 50% without it. And there's clear benefits to both. But yeah, don't do what Leeds United did this week, and they got everyone to send in a picture of themselves who they owned a season ticket. You may have seen this on Twitter.
Yeah,
if they owned a season ticket, they could send in a picture, and then they printed them out on cardboard and stuck them in the seats. Someone sent in a picture of Osama bin Laden, and it managed to make it through any kind of checks. So that was sat in one of the seats at their stadium. And also it kind of ended up looking like the crowd looked like a giant game of Guess Who, which was also kind of odd, but
unsettling.
Yeah, it is unsettling. I mean, like, fans are a huge part of sport, aren't they? Like, let's not deny that. But
yeah, because I think with like the MLB, it's not like soccer. I think the plays that work are when it's a slow build, when you see kind of the attack coming and you can slowly raise that crowd up and get them excited, and then the goal comes. But MLB, it's kind of every play is almost like the quick shot or the big save or whatever. It's all immediate reactionary, right?
Yeah.
So
that's
sorry, go
kind
ahead,
of what
Jim.
I was like. You're not. It's hard to do. It's hard to replicate that in the MLB because there's so much kind of exactly rapid reaction. You have to cut it off. The commercial breaks make it weird. I mean, when do you? I don't know. I guess the one thing that I was noticing more in soccer was like a miss on a breakaway, and you just see like the players react, and the crowd is kind of like pretty much similar.
Okay.
But so I'm watching soccer. We'll get onto that later.
Yeah, let's jump into the European sports, and then we'll jump into the EPL. But with the Euro wrap up, Dan, why don't you take over on this segment? Just kind of tell us what's back. What are we waiting on? What are you most excited for?
So in terms of what's back, Bundesliga was the first league to return. So the top league in Germany, that's all kind of sewn up now. Bayern Munich have won the league over there. So I don't think, I haven't been tuning into too many games over the last couple of weeks. The Premier League is obviously now back, and we're, I think, just over kind of a week into that, which has been quite good. It's been quite a rapid schedule. There's been games almost every day, which has been, I think everyone's kind of really welcomed that. Teams are not necessarily performing as expected. I think going kind of from not playing, and I think a lot of the players maybe signed out of the idea of actually playing because it was quite a rapid turnaround between, are we going to play? Are we going to come back? And then suddenly it was like, okay, we're coming back in 3 weeks' time. And if you're a professional sports player playing at that elite level, 3 weeks is not enough time to kind of get yourself back into shape if you'd let yourself kind of slack off a little bit. We found that some of the more elite teams have maybe not been performing as expected in the first few games, particularly Arsenal, I think would be one of those. La Liga is back, and also Serie A, so the Spanish and Italian leagues. The two leagues that didn't return, the French top league, Ligue 1, was awarded to Paris Saint-Germain. They ended their season. They'll restart when all is safe. I think they're looking at a September onwards restart to their season, or the restart of the next season. And also the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, they awarded their season to FC Ajax of Amsterdam. It's kind of looking like, those are quite sensible decisions really on those two leagues. Without going into the politics of football too much, obviously there's a hell of a lot of money tied up in TV rights and contracts to actually show all of the games that were kind of promised. That was a big issue with Ligue 1 in France when they decided to cancel the rest of their season. Some of the big TV networks, particularly the Arabic TV network, beIN Sports, kind of demanded a refund of the money that they had kind of put forward for the season. So like on a pro rata basis, you pay us back X billion, which is worth 8 games of the season. Interesting little point on there is that it ended up being beIN Sports challenging the league for this money, but the president of beIN Sports was also the president of Paris Saint-Germain, who had just been awarded the league. So there's all sorts of crossed wires. So
is there anything not corrupt in European soccer?
So he was leading a legal challenge basically against himself in French football. But away from football, what else is coming back? Formula One returns next weekend for a double header in Austria. They've kind of mixed up their season format, and they're going to go back-to-back races in certain locations. So the 5th of July, we have Austria. Then the following weekend, on the 12th of July, we have a race again in Austria. And then it goes to Hungary. And then the week after that, there's 2 races in Great Britain at Silverstone. Really looking forward to that. I don't think actually having no fans will in any way diminish the enjoyment of watching Formula One on TV, particularly. I think, obviously there's a small factor that fans at the racetrack kind of, pay or like contribute towards the experience of the driver, but generally they're kind of quite isolated out there on the track and they're sort of zoned in during that race. So I think if we're looking at which sport will we see the most authentic return, I'm looking at Formula One as that sport. And it promises to be a really good season.
Have you watched NASCAR at all since it's come back?
No.
Me neither. So I'll ask Joe then, how has that been without fans? Has it seemed weird at all? Not that you were watching a ton of NASCAR beforehand, but
yeah, I don't have the baseline of that. But like I've said, I don't think it's too much of a difference because you don't see the stands really much in the race. Like there's so many different camera angles inside the car, inside the the pit areas, and there's just so many different things that they're showing that, like, even with fans, showing fans would be a disservice to what's going on anyway. So because there's literally no downtime except this weekend or last weekend when there was a stoppage every couple minutes, and I think yesterday there were more stoppages. So
that's
the only
greatest sport in the world.
Greatest sport in the world. Fans is when there's just constant stoppages. So yeah.
So Dan, what maybe just name one other sport you're most excited for coming back.
Well, the one that I probably touch on quickly is tennis, which is set to return, I think, for the Washington Open in August. There was quite a lot of drama in the last couple of weeks with Novak Djokovic, basically arranged a tournament, the Adria Tour, and I mean, not every single player on it, but like a ton of the players on the tour ended up testing positive for coronavirus.
Yeah.
And there's a big blame game kind of going on between different camps. Grigor Dimitrov, I think, is one of the players kind of accused of being the kind of the super spreader at the tournament. But
did you watch Dimitrov play? He was like doubled over on the court coughing, and he was like clearly very ill. I mean, he just there was no reason for him to have been playing. I would put a lot of the blame on him.
Yeah, I think he's an easy target at the moment. I'm looking forward to tennis being back up, but kind of within the right parameters and health and safety regulations. Of course, at the moment, at Wimbledon would be on. So it feels weird to have a summer in the UK, a summer in London without strawberries and cream and Pims and Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal dominating out on the grass courts at Wimbledon. So yeah, tennis is probably the one I'm looking forward to.
Cool. I agree with you. I love watching. Is Wimbledon coming back? Did they delay it or?
No, they just cancelled it for this year.
They canceled it.
So
so
next
U.S.
year.
Open. I know U.S. Open will take place. That'll probably, I guess, be the only one of the year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Let's jump into the EPL. Joe, why don't you go first as someone who's actually been watching recently? I have yet to watch any games. Honestly, I haven't really watched any sports besides UFC since this is all taking place. I'm just kind of waiting for I guess MLB to come back or whichever one's going to be first. But Joe, what have been your takeaways from the couple of games you've watched? I know you haven't necessarily been a huge soccer fan in the past.
I think my biggest takeaway is I think France is going to win the next 3 World Cups, just because they're just totally loaded with goal scoring. Yeah, it's been enjoyable. I mean, it was definitely a little bit weird, knowing that a champion was crowned, I think 2 weeks after the restart. But it made sense in the long term, and I kind of I know a lot of Liverpool fans. I was with one Friday night who was so excited because it's been, I don't know how long it's been since they've actually won, and
all right, Joe's breaking up. He's been frozen, but with audio for the last couple of minutes.
Still felt the same as if they would have won in regular, in a regular.
Hold on, I'm just gonna go ahead and mute him for a second until that gets all corrected out. So he did say Liverpool won the title. Dan, I know you're a big Liverpool fan, so maybe speak on that for a minute.
Yeah, so obviously Liverpool had an absolutely incredible start to the Premier League season this year, and they had I think it was a 29 game unbeaten run, no, maybe 28, something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just they've been amazing, and they definitely deserve the title, and they obviously secured it this week after Chelsea beat Man City 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. There's still a lot to play for in the Premier League. Obviously, the title's gone. The title had kind of been done and dusted from about February this year when Liverpool kind of pulled away, but it's nice for them to have it confirmed. And yes, it's their first title in 30 years, although it's actually their first Premier League title. So the inception of the Premier League, I think, was 93, 94.
Mm-hmm.
And Liverpool obviously dominated in the 70s and the 80s. And then by the time the Premier League came around as we know it today, Man United and Sir Alex Ferguson kind of really dominated. And then you had Chelsea won a few titles in that time. And then all of a sudden Manchester City had their Abu Dhabi investor group get involved. And City, I think, have got 3 or 4. I think maybe City have got 4 titles in that time. Chelsea might have 5. And Arsenal have got a couple. So Liverpool have kind of arrived, I guess, in the Premier League era. And yeah, they're kind of in place for, real kind of dynasty there maybe at the moment. They've certainly got the best coach in the country at the moment, and probably in the world, I would say, in Jurgen Klopp. So it's good to see.
Joe, I don't know if you heard me, but I had to mute you there midpoint. Yeah. Unfortunately, you froze out for a second. But Dan, I was joking about Liverpool being one of your favorite teams. I know how much you dislike them. It would be like when the Red Sox won their first World Series in 2004 to break the curse. That was tough for me and Joe. But with Liverpool, I would say the one thing I was kind of happy for them about was that they did get to finish the season. Because I think the season would have always come with an asterisk if they didn't get to kind of play it out. I mean, it still might. I mean, they did get that 2-month break in there in the middle, but at least they get to kind of play it out, and there's a completed season there. But Joe, would you say you have a favorite team thus far?
Not really. I mean, I like certain players. Obviously, Pulisic. So I think him have that great breakaway goal against Man City.
Awesome goal.
Was great. And really those French guys, I mean, Pogba and Martial, I don't even know how to say it, but I mean him easily having a hat trick was that game was probably the most locked into game I've been. I usually watch them while I'm working, so it's kind of on in the background, and I do I've always enjoyed the pageantry of EPL more than any of the other leagues, including MLS. So I am kind of looking forward to, like I said at the start of this, looking forward to diversifying my sports knowledge. I'd be lying if I said I understood how, the championship works. I knew that obviously Chelsea had to beat Man City for that to happen, which is always a little weird to me. I do think you should kind of control your own destiny. But like I said about the MLB, I have no complaints about and how anything really works. The fact that it's on and it was a success, and I think shout out to your players. So
yeah, absolutely. Quickly before we move on from the Premier League, you mentioned Pulisic. He is really developing well at Chelsea. Obviously, he played at Dortmund for several seasons and kind of looked very good in the German league. And yeah, his development at Chelsea this year really does seem to be coming along well. There's also a young American at Dortmund currently, Reyna. His first name escapes me, but he's the son of Claudio Reyna, who is the former US men's national team captain. I think
Wasn't
he's
he a coach? Was Reyna a coach?
He would have probably gone into coaching, definitely in MLS. I don't think he coached the national team. But yeah, his son is looking to be, one of the next great players as well. So hopefully we get to see him in the Premier League. But in terms of Pulisic, Chelsea seem to be the one team that are kind of really investing in players at the moment. And while other teams, including Liverpool, are kind of looking at their accounts and saying, well, with this and this going on and the global crisis, we're not willing to maybe spend 70 million on a player, whereas Chelsea, who are owned by Roman Abramovich, the Russian oligarch, seem to be just kind of giving blank checks to their management. So they're looking really, really good next year. They got a guy called Hakim Ziyech coming in from Ajax, Timo Werner's coming in from RB Leipzig, and they're looking to sign a couple of other good young English players, maybe Ben Chilwell and Declan Rice from West Ham, I think, are on the shopping list for this summer. So expect big things from Chelsea next season. And I would tout them to be the team that really challenge Liverpool for that title next year.
Okay,
quick question.
cool.
What is a sporting director? That's what Claudio Reyna is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it's kind of where is he a sporting director?
He was for NYCFC, which is why the name is familiar for the last 4 years, and how he's with FC Austin.
Yeah, a sporting director. I think they control kind of the direction of the club and whether they want to invest in youth facilities or if they want to, if they want to get in kind of guys that are in their prime. It's one of those there's not really a clear management structure in football. Each club kind of has their own way of doing things, and with some, the coach or we would say the manager has kind of autonomy over transfers and the whole direction of the club, whereas there'll be other places where you are very much just a coach and you deal with picking the team on a Saturday and training the players, and transfers are nothing to do with you. That's kind of become the more modern way, but it's still frowned upon generally at most clubs to not just let the manager / coach have all control. So say Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, it would be expected that he would be the person saying, I want to sign Antoine Griezmann from Barcelona because he fits into the way I want our team to play. Whereas you may have another club, let's say NYFC, you'd have Claudio Reyna set up in a boardroom saying, I want to sign my son from Dortmund to play in this team. And then the manager doesn't want him. It kind of, that's one way that soccer is changing.
Kind of like the NFL model. Sounds like almost the same, half the team or some of the teams like a Bill Belichick or Bill O'Brien, and they have control over all player personnel and also obviously coaching the team, and then and Adam Gase as well. And then kind of other teams. But we're kind of going in the other direction where it's always been kind of general manager, coach on separate levels. Now it seems like more coaches are getting the control over transactions and stuff. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know whether some of it as well might be a way of bypassing. I don't know, because to coach and to kind of manage in US sports, do you need licenses?
I've no idea.
Yeah, because so in soccer you need to have like a coaching license,
probably
sanctioned by UEFA, and they have all these different levels. So there's like UEFA B, C, D, all of that. So I don't know whether, maybe putting someone into a sporting director role lets them have influence without actually having the credentials, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
You often see a lot of high profile former players taking those director roles. And I do wonder if it's probably slightly done on a networking base, that they may have influence over sponsors and benefactors in that sense.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I'll have to look into that for the American sports but I'm assuming it would be pretty similar. Last note on the EPL, and then we'll move on. But just to say, there's only one positive test in this last round of testing for the EPL before they started. That was June 15th to 16th. It looks like they're doing tests every other week. So we'll see. I think it would be this week that there would be more tests. So obviously with playback, we'll see if the cases have gone up, or hopefully they've either stayed the same or there's just zero tests, and then the league can continue on. All right, let's go into our last comment here is the PGA Tour. Golf is back. The PGA Tour is struggling a little bit right now with positive tests. They're struggling with players having to withdraw. Seven players had to withdraw from the Travelers after either testing positive or being exposed. Like Brooks Koepka had to withdraw because his caddy had tested positive. Bryson DeChambeau has become the big storyline. So I just don't want to talk too much about COVID. We've talked about COVID with everything else. So we'll get into DeChambeau here. How long do you think until all golfers are looking huge and hitting the ball, 370 yards on drives? Joe, what do you think? Do you think this is the new trend, or do you think he's going to stay an anomaly?
I think there's always evolution in any sport, as I've always alluded to. So I do think this will be a new trend, maybe a little more controlled. I mean, I think the change from Tiger on has been, huge in golfers. So, I mean, he's got to start making his putts, though. I mean, that was what cost him the championship last week. So
it's true.
Muscles aren't going to help you there.
I actually, it's cool. It's cool to see the big drives. It's cool to see them using different angles. But it almost looks too easy. Like you mentioned the putting, obviously, like if he gets his putting game on. But Brooks Koepka last week, he drove on a par 4 and he had a tap-in eagle putt. A tap-in eagle. He drove it. He was 4 feet from the hole on a drive on and he kind of just shot over some trees and made it. I don't love that. It's a little too easy, and I want to see. I don't know. I like watching, because golf's such a hard game. I like watching the intricacy of having to hit some really tough shots from the rough or figure their way out around trees, that kind of thing. If guys just are so jacked and are hitting the ball right to the green every time, that kind of loses some of the interest for me. What do you think, Dan? What are your thoughts on that?
So did this come about from, didn't he have some kind of beef with Koepka?
He did.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Koepka said, you haven't got abs or something like that.
Yep.
And then DeChambeau basically went away and just put on like 50 pounds of muscle and is now dominating. You're right, Joe, as well, in the fact that, there is this evolution of every sport. I think it's going to be tough to marry together that talent and dedication to playing golf and being an elite golfer, and also kind of having the drive to work on your actual physical attributes and your body. And I think maybe that's something that we'll start to see more coming through on kind of golf scholarships, and maybe of colleges out in the States and out particularly in, you know, some of those Georgia colleges and stuff that are producing, you know, particularly good golfers. I think University of Texas was Jordan Spieth as well, wasn't it? You know, whether you start to see recruiters at those schools looking for people that, because I mean, generally, I think everyone can get into that kind of shape, but there is some genetic element there as well in terms of being able to kind of, because I think with DeChambeau, the turnaround was like within a year. He went.
It was in 3 months. It was within 3 months. Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of players that just won't be able to do that. I mean, during Tiger Woods' dominant era, it was always said to be one of the things about Tiger was that he was physically fitter than basically every other player on the tour. You're talking about people like Ernie Els, Vijay Singh, Colin Montgomery, Phil Mickelson. Who's the guy with the blonde hair that looks a bit like Trump? He's a bit of a meme. John Daly.
Daly.
Yeah. You know, and Tiger back then was physically in, you know, impeccable shape. And he is now by all means as well. Like he's still, you know, a very healthy guy. But I don't know. I'd hate for that to become an element, you know, a limitation for golfers, you know, that you can't just win or you can't be elite just based on your talent. You need to physically kind of tick all these boxes as well. Do you think we're entering the steroid era of golf? You think guys are going to start juicing now to I certainly think it's going to be, it will be an element of it. And I think, you will see, it's kind of that, like in soccer, you've got the two best players in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Messi is your, let's say, Phil Mickelson kind of guy who's incredibly talented, doesn't work too much on his on maybe his physique and stuff like that. Whereas you got Ronaldo, who is someone who has just risen to the top through sheer determination and work ethic. I think the two can exist together. But maybe it opens up an opportunity for maybe players that in the past would have been like top 100, top 50 to actually shoot themselves up into that top 10. And another example of that would be Novak Djokovic, who for a long time was a top 20 player in the tennis rankings, and then all of a sudden he flipped a switch. He says he dropped gluten out of his diet, and that was why he kind of hit that next level. Other people kind of argue that maybe he dropped gluten out and put in something else, kind of performance enhancing. But I think it opens up an avenue within golf to, you know, to hit that next level, even when you are a top 50 player. That could be good.
Me and Joe are the biggest steroid guys there are, so we have, you know, if that comes to any sport, we support it. All right, so the last question here, and then we'll finish out the show. PGA Championship scheduled for August 6th through the 9th. Will we get any majors this year, Joe? As cases continue to rise, not only around the country but also in the PGA.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll put it as, I'll say greater than 50, just because they are rising. Am I frozen again?
Yeah, you were for a second. You're good now.
I'll commit to a side. I'll say 60%.
Okay, Dan, your guess?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say there won't. So the question is, will there be any majors this year? Yeah, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I say there will be, but I don't think it'll be the PGA Championship. I think it will be the Masters in November. That is my prediction. Probably foolish to predict something that's even later in the year, but I'm just going on the hope that the Masters are too big to cancel for a year, as is the NFL, hopefully. But that wraps up our show. That's our first episode with Dan. I know we had some technical issues, both on my end with my mic and on Joe's end with freezing every 5 minutes. But that's all right. We're pushing through. Still put out a good show. Dan, why don't you tell people real quick what's dropping tomorrow on the SNG YouTube channel and why people need to subscribe?
So yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow we have Only COD Can Judge Me episode 7 dropping. That's our weekly CODcast where we have a guest come on and drop into the Warzone map with James and I. And actually, if you're a soccer fan, if you like Liverpool in particular, this is a great show for you. Our special guest this week is Tom Leroy Jenkins Nuttall Jones. And yeah, it was a great show. So yeah, we're excited to drop that tomorrow.
Yep. And Joe, if you ever get a PS4 and you move off PS2, we'd love to have you on the show.
Or we've got to find a way of getting back on the PS2 online platform.
I know
somehow.
that would be great.
You know a guy at Sony,
just playing some Crash Bandicoot or something. That would be great. Joe, do you have any final words?
I hope I can get any words out after this Wi-Fi collapse here. It's brutal.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be going better next week. Actually, next week we either won't have a show or it'll just be you two guys running it. I'll be on vacation, so we'll talk about that. Might be kind of cool, just you guys doing it. So we'll see. If not, we'll be back in 2 weeks. But thank you all for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, whatever. I don't know, whatever YouTubers say. And we'll see you guys soon.